Welcome to this program called Leaders Are Readers. And this is your host, Doc Ant. And with me today, I have Stephen van Basten, the author of the book. Uh, Let me just see. So you run a small business. Now what? I just wanted to make sure I didn't get it wrong. Stephen, how are you doing, buddy?
Yeah, always good, always good. Thank you. And yourself?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Well, we've had great replies from the people that looked at the first product of me being together with you. And obviously, I think it's in the interest of the readers so that we can add them and take them to the next level. Let's just take a step back. So you run your own business. Now what? Why the now what? Explain to the people what that is about, Stephen.
Yeah, 100%. It's a series of books. My first one was So You're Alive Now What? Kind of a philosophical book. And then Now You're Engaged Now What? Which is marriage planning or wedding planning. And then Now You're Married Now What? Which is how to stay married. And then I stepped out of that into relationship mastery, which was more about body language and face pattern recognition. And then back into the Now What series, which is So You Run a Small Business, Now What? And really, I was looking at coaching and I was looking at an area to do coaching in. And I'd like to always pick the low hanging fruit. So I can coach on any area of life, any of the 7 areas. But I picked small business coaching because it's easier to get into, and they're not barriers to entry like in big corporates. So that's where small business now what comes from. It's really just low hanging fruit that I can get in and make an impact immediately, but also make some money more quickly.
Well, while we're talking about low-hanging fruit, I see 2 books coming. And the one will be, you have now got your black belt. Now what? So tell the people a little bit more, the sensei van Basten that I know. Talk to me.
Yeah, interesting. Well, man, my first instructor was my late father. I was 5 years old, and he said, "No, you're too young." I was begging, "You're too young. You got to be 6. You're too young." I said, "No," but about four and a bit, I was like, I want to go and train. And his story is actually quite cool. He was out one evening in a pub or something, and he watched a guy getting beaten up. And it bothered him because he said, firstly, if that was him, he couldn't defend himself. And secondly, he was too scared to go and save that guy, to go and help that guy. He stood and watched, and he was too scared to get involved. And the next day, he got involved with a karate club and started learning. And then it was low-hanging fruit for him. He was funny with money. Robert Kiyosaki's got rich dad, poor dad. I had a poor dad. And he taught me all the poor dad stuff. I've taken decades to get rid of that rubbish. But he was a poor dad, and he taught karate out of a need to make money. And so he was my first instructor. Back in the day, Doc, I was in, I think, Standard 8. It was still the Transvaal, and I got Southern Transvaal colors in Standard 8. And of course, that created a whole bunch of animosity amongst other schoolboys, because, boys and their testosterone and stuff. And then I gave up and started and gave up and started. But yes, this year I attempt, and I'm relatively sure I will get my 5th Dan.
Hold on. I think somebody else tripped over that. You're saying, can I hold my hands up? 5th Dan. You're not saying number 1, not 2, not 3, not 4. 5th Dan.
Wow. I got my first Dan in 1985, I believe.
Yeah.
And it's actually quite interesting. I think I gave up for about 20 years, but at different times. And my students are now, my one student is now a 6th Dan. Yeah. And my other students are already 5th Dans. And so I'm catching up now. So they overtook me while I was sleeping. But
I might as well ask you 2 more things. Hold on. This
100%.
is so interesting that whoever's listening is like, hold on, we'll get to the information just now. Let's find out more about Stephen here.
Okay.
What year did you win the World Champs? I know that you were the World Champ. What year was that? What style?
So, well, we're going to have to go backwards in maths. So I was 45. I'm 60 now. So it was 15 years ago.
15 years.
And it was I know that because it was in the veteran section. You had to be 45 to be veteran, and I had just turned 45. So that was 15 years ago. It was Jukai World Champs. And it happened
1989.
to be, yeah, it happened to be in Cape Town, which was, I guess, helpful. And I got a gold in the fighting, the kumite, and I got a silver in the kata, which is the form. It's
Okay.
actually quite interesting because there's two other guys in South Africa who after me, like I opened the door to that for South Africans. Often people go like, you opened the door to that for us. So I've got one friend, he's a sixth dan now, who won the kata, so he got a gold for kata, and I've got another guy, he's a fifth dan now, who's won the kumite. But neither of them have medaled in both.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that is interesting. Well, I think
Thank
that
you.
the most inspiring part for me is that both your wife and your daughter also have black belts. Is that correct?
Yes, I met Jackie. She walked into my dojo and I nearly fainted. I thought, oh, what in heaven's name? And so we had some admin to sort out. She had a boyfriend, I had a girlfriend, and I was going to Japan and she was going to England. But we decided to give it a bash, no pun intended. And it was about 7 months we went out before I went to Japan. And then we actually decided, because we had agreed to break up when that happened, but we decided to stay together. And that happened quite nicely. We have. And so, yes, she's got a third dan. She's going for a fourth dan with me in 6 weeks' time, actually. And my daughter has a second dan and protea colors.
Okay.
So, funnily enough, Doc, I actually achieved Springbok colors twice, or Springbok and Protea, but I never went. Like I qualified, but never went, so never got them.
Okay.
But it was the first one was the year I went to Japan. I spent 8 months in Japan, but I couldn't afford to do both. So I had been invited to go overseas with the Springboks, but I couldn't afford. I couldn't afford. We had to pay for ourselves. And then the other time, I just didn't go. It's later on in life.
Well, I've now laid the seed bed, and the listeners are listening saying, what an interesting person. So I'm claiming it, and I call on the book that says, I have black belt. Now what? Okay. So now the seed bed is loaded. So back to business today. So
But,
now we
but
should
we,
change ourselves. Okay, we are. So
what was the
you're right.
second book you said I've got to do? You
Oh, the
had two.
second
It
one.
was only the first. Yes.
Ah, okay, very clever. I did say to you. Okay, the other one I would say is playing golf and breaking 85. Now what?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Whoa, now we can
No.
talk. I mean, because as you know, you and I have been on the golf circuit on a weekly basis with our personal goals, our personal challenge, and in terms of just playing better golf, but playing golf for various reasons. Maybe the top three reasons why you played, I'll give my three, just so people understand why we know each other so well.
Yeah, now it's an interesting concept because karate are much more natural. Golf, just a nightmare. It's just hard work, and I've been sickling. It feels like 30 years, I guess, but at 60-ish, I'm playing reasonably well. But yeah, that also came from a book, funnily enough, and it was a 1 minute golfer, written by the same guy who did the 1 minute manager. And right in the beginning, he asks, "Why do you play golf? What are your reasons for playing golf?" And my first one is physical health. I walk, I don't take a cart, as you know. Secondly, mental health, because you're
Yeah,
using left brain and right brain in golf. It's like chess, funnily enough, because you've got all different clubs and lengths and sizes and uses. So you choose one there, but you strategize on the other side. And then it's actually spiritual. You're out in nature. It's beautiful, and the scenes are very beautiful. Usually, I like to tee off at 5 in the morning or 6 in the morning. Sun's
correct.
coming up. It's beautiful. And then and then play with some nice people. Just social. There's a social aspect. And then lastly, is play good golf. So the nice thing is, if I just pitch up, I've achieved 80% of why I'm there. So if I play
Absolutely.
well or not, it's immaterial.
Well, I'm gonna plant a seed and to say to the people, imagine the seed. The sun is about to break through. There's a chill in the air. Two buddies are standing ready to attack this golf course. And then SVB, Stephen van Basten, puts on his music. And we listen to good opera music with a background, and it just brings a crescendo in terms of let's tee off.
And Van Tonde starts crying.
Absolutely, because it's just so beautiful of just
Yeah.
realizing another day of life and life of gratitude. So okay,
That,
so now
that
I've
was
actually
Secret
spoken to
Garden,
you a
and I
lot.
think Secret Garden, and I think it's called a Diego, which is just the most beautiful piece of music I've ever heard in my life. Play that on, and you and I are crying like babies.
Absolutely. No, look, it's just beautiful. So, right. So I've now laid a seedbed for those two books to come because, I think uh, books come from within because it's who we are. And that's why people will read the books because they learn from us based on experience, because stories sell. It's just the way that it works. And that's why I wanted to, before we actually get into what we're doing today, is people need to know who you are. Okay. So that's important for me that people get to know you.
Well, just so you don't think like they've got a real rounded view now on that small little bit we've spoken about, because there's a multifaceted something in here that you don't always want to be part of.
But that's the interesting part. And I can tell you one thing, I never know what's going to come out of your mouth next. That's the truth. And that's what
Me
makes you
neither.
interesting. Well, you're exactly like my wife. I never know what's going to come out of your mouth next. And that it just brings for some thinking. And yeah, sometimes some Arthur Murray in terms of what is he on about? Okay. But Stephen, you obviously were inspired to write this book. Okay. You now running a small business. So what? So you really wanted to help entry level entrepreneurs, can I say it? People in small business to say, it shouldn't be that difficult, but how do I help you make it easy for yourself? And I think if I look at the methodology that we look at the first time in terms of what you've created, it literally is a huge aid for people in business. So, what is that methodology? Just repeat that.
You know, I went on a course on to write a book with Terry Robert. It was a 2-day boot camp. And the first thing he asked all of us, is he said, why do you want to write a book?
Yeah.
Some people want a bestseller. He wrote a book to get a job. Other people, so and the reason I then changed. I actually wrote my second book first, but let's not go there. The reason I wrote my first book was to gain credibility. When you're an author, people look at you different, and so people might wonder about my methodology. On the hard copy, I have a price on my book of 5,000 rand.
Yeah.
I don't expect to ever get 5,000 rand for it, but I've been able to sell it for 1,000 because of that. Now, if I put 1,000 on, I would be selling it at 500, right? So it's a very clever way of creating credibility. Then, and it's working slowly but surely. I'm starting to get queries. How much is your course? How much is your book? And I don't give anyone a price. I go, if you've related to something on social media with my book cover or any of my blogs, etc., you're a business owner.
Yeah.
Then I say, well, let's have a Zoom meeting and I'll give you all the options. Now, I've had one person phone to ask me the price of the book, who's now a full-time coaching client at thousands a month instead of hundreds for the book. So, so you ask about the methodology. I can't really give you, I've got this passion for small business owners and I want to help them. I wrote the book for credibility, but also I've been, with my previous partner, Vinesh Maharaj, a co-author, funnily enough, we did say, so I had all of the chapters: vision statement, mission statement, unique selling proposition, SWOT analysis, credibility statement, the niche market, target market, et cetera, et cetera. So, I could have Google, but of the time using AI, I could have researched all of that and done it, taken a lot longer, but AI helped me with that. So I've had all of the topics and I filled them in, but then I created the prompts, and the prompts are actually what I think is the real key of this. They're interactive. You actually make AI your business
Partner.
coach, and that is incredibly powerful. And a lot of the first people who've done the the weekly work with me, like you have, and unlike you, I mean, you know AI, but people who don't, that first prompt that just goes, have an interaction with me and teach me about yourself, AI, and ask me questions to find out where I am, and then teach me about what AI is. People are going, geez, it's beautiful, because people go, oh, it's so easy and it's so simple. And like, I was always
but here's the truth.
embarrassed or scared.
Here's the truth, and that is that, because one thing I say to myself is, although I'm involved in the book, I said I have to be a student to be able to actually see it from the receiving end of the young business owner. And I can tell you, frankly, that the methodology that he used by supplying the prompt and everybody workshopping the same time and getting to solutions as everybody works together is a brilliant methodology. And that's why I would like to recommend, if you're listening to this, you actually need to get onto the workshops on a weekly basis, because it helps you in a practical way, because the prompt is provided by Stephen out of what he has now basically designed. He makes the prompt available, you copy paste and literally then start answering the questions of that prompt. And it leads you to the desired results that you want. And everybody's result will be different, because it all depends on what your kind of business is. So I just want to
100%.
put it out there. That's what makes this valuable.
So Doc, when I thank you for that, and I agree, it is valuable. I know, because I've used it in my own business, right? So the interesting thing for me is, there are 8 billion people on Earth, and what I'm really after is 12 people of those 8 billion to coach. And my target market, I have it, or my niche market, I have very, very cleverly and clearly defined, and that is small business owners who are already successful, who need to who want to take the next step. Okay, people who make quick decisions, and then they work hard to make those decisions come true, and make their dreams come true. Then they have to have a spiritual vibe to it, that they have to have a spiritual belief that this is part of their vocation.
Yeah.
Part of their vocation, and also they have to have a high value on personal development. So there's a very specific target market I'm after, and there are only really 12 people. I want 12 people that I'm coaching and 3 waiting.
Perfect. So that's like, it's a dime a dozen at a time.
8 billion.
That's all you want.
Out of 8 billion. Yeah.
You want the dirty dozen. That's all you want.
And there's a nice business lesson there. Well, so 12 is significant in a spiritual way. I'm sure you've already worked that out, right?
Correct. Absolutely.
So there were 12 disciples. Now, I'm not saying I'm Jesus or anything like that. Please don't get but I'm following a leader. Right?
Correct. You're following. In fact, there's a success leaves clues. And that's one of the greatest successes of a leader that actually duplicated and reached the world through 12 people. So I think 100%. That's very clever, and I think
then one of them is going to be a scolly who's going to be not nice to me.
Exactly. There's always somebody that has to pull the average down. Somebody 100%. Has to pull the average down. They always say there's that one guy. That one.
And there's going to be a Peter who goes, oh no, it wasn't Van Basten, it was all me. Oh, that's fine. I don't care.
Fantastic. But you know what? It's the analogy that helps our listeners now. All right. So you actually spoke about.
Just quickly. There's a beautiful business lesson there, right?
Yeah.
Get clear on your target market. You don't, people who think, oh, the whole world can buy my book. It's rubbish. Or the whole world I can coach. No, or the whole world I can sell to. No, you're also in business coaching. You can't coach 100 people or 200 people one-on-one. You want 10, 15 at most.
Correct. And it actually has to be the right people for the right result that you want to achieve.
And I left one thing with my target market. They pay on time.
But that's important.
On time every month.
Yeah, that is important. Because there is, again, coming from the anomaly that you used, and that is that the work is worth his wage. So that's it. And I really believe what you're doing is valuable and deserves to be paid on time. I just want to put it out there. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Now, you said something about one of the co-authors was Vinesh Maharaj. So let's talk about this book happens to have yourself, that is literally beating the drum, but there's 4 or 5 other authors that you have augmented and brought onto the writing of the book because you wanted to achieve something. So Why did you include Vinesh Maharaj specifically to be co-author or contribute to the book, and for what reason? I'm listening.
Yes, very good. There are a couple of reasons. And actually, the first biggest co-author is AI, right? ChatGPT wrote 80% of that book. And I'm not sitting here going, I wrote that whole thing myself. I didn't. Okay. It was actually incredibly quick. And it's on 230 pages now, Doc. So and in A4, it's a big book. And so, but I still had to ask the questions. And I want to just draw your attention to a very nice blog I did the other day, and it's in the book. Actually, it was so good, I put it in the book in this latest edition, and that is, AI doesn't necessarily have to lead to job losses.
Yeah.
What if AI leads to a 4-day work week and a 3-day weekend? We use it to become so efficient that it gets our stuff done quicker, and we can have more time to be a good husband, be a good father, in your case, be a good grandfather, probably a good great grandfather, right? And you can buy the good whiskey or the 80% Stroh rum, and the big thick steaks, and live a decent life. Because I believe that the good Lord wanted us to live a really beautiful, abundant life. And so, so that's where that comes from. But I just have this belief that a thick book or a book with lots of pages is better than a thin book with less pages. So
that's true.
So
no,
sometimes,
that is true.
yeah, and when I buy a book, I like to buy a lekker duck book, because then it looks like it's got a lot of info in it. So that's the first real motive. But the second one is having John DeMartini. I mean, just sit back. This oak is a multi-millionaire, maybe a billionaire. I don't know. He's a one. If you were to speak about world teachers at the moment, he would be in the top 5 of people who come up with Tony Robbins.
And great influencer. He's definitely got his subject, his matter is known. If you want to talk about occupying the mind, challenging the mind, descripting the mind, rescripting the mind, I mean, John DeMartini is one of your top gurus in the world. He's a guru, 100%.
100%. So like,
what did he write on? What is his contribution in the book?
So you're going ahead of yourself here. Wait here with me a while. A while with me. Let's take this journey slowly. So imagine, so it's about credibility once again, right? So imagine you see this book, and then you see bonus chapters by Dr. John DeMartini, and you go, by default, John DeMartini has, what's the word I'm looking for, has sponsored me or acknowledged me. You know what I'm saying? He has.
He's acknowledged you.
Yeah. So he knows his stuff's in there, and he has acknowledged me. It's like it's a big thing. Endorsed me. That's the word I'm looking for. He's endorsed me, right? And then then you see Hardus, Dr. Hardus, what's his surname?
Pretorius,
Dr. Van Tonde, Dr. Odi Abucha, and Vinesh Maharaj is not a doctor, right? So you go, all of these doctors have got chapters in here. That's just adds credibility from my perspective. Yeah. I can't tell you offhand the chapters he wrote. Don DeMartini gave me 4 chapters. And to be frank, he's cerebral. He's like a brainy. He's over here. So there'll be 1% of people who buy that book who actually read John DeMartini stuff, because it's on a different level, and it's quite on a different block, but it's there for those people. Then I just did a chapter on leadership. It's quite a long chapter, actually. And I put it in long because I like a thick book, not a thin one. But it's very interesting. And then, Vinesh is a sales trainer.
Yeah.
And also is a friend. I owe Vinesh a lot. We spent 5 years together. Nicest guy on earth. I love him. It's just a nice, easiest relationship of my life. We worked together, and our biggest problem was we got to the office and we chatted about everything except business, because we got on so well.
Okay.
So I wanted to do him the honor of just honoring him and his part in my life. And then, of course, Dr. Van Tonder and his knowledge around, DISC. Because I know, it's quite interesting. you worked me out quite quickly on the golf course, and you realize that when I get angry, you must just leave me alone. And then
Yep.
like arguing with me on there, like the chicken incident with your other friend, doesn't help.
It doesn't help. It doesn't help.
So,
It helps
and
to know who
I
you are.
mean,
It
yes,
helps
I
to know who
imagine
you
that just helped you to go. Oh, when Stephen's having a little frothy, just leave him alone. And in 2 minutes, he recalibrates. So, why don't you tell us a bit about DISC quickly while we're on the subject?
Fair question, and that is that, especially reading the book. Remember, we're now appealing to entrepreneurs and people running their own small businesses. The number one thing, numero uno, is to understand who you are, because who you are will determine how you run your business. And not to have a big lecture, but there are four behavioral types. The first one is the driver. That means that whatever they do is they're going to go with driving, and they're going to have with purpose. But they can also realize that they drive so hard that they actually hurt people in the process, because they didn't even realize they hurt the people. Then you
That's
have,
me.
yeah. And the second kind
When
of
I
guy,
was in corporate, when I
yeah,
was in corporate, okay, so they loved me. They would give me a job
yeah.
and I would get it done, right? But in my wake were a whole bunch of dead bodies, right? Just like people like who thought I was an asshole. And I was, but I got the job done. I don't need collaboration when I know what needs to be done. I just move forward and get
Because
stuff
a
done.
driver would
So
put the emotions aside and say, what is my goal I want to achieve?
yeah,
And I'll get it done no matter what. The next
especially
guy,
if I have a vision.
yeah.
I know what I need. I know exactly what I need to do. So now you come in and suggested something else doesn't help me. Way.
Absolutely. The second guy is what we call the sanguine, or he is your influencer. It's the person that actually, generally speaking, when they speak, people aspire to be like them, walk like them, talk like them, because these people have achieved things in life. But the biggest thing is they know who's who. They connected to people like you are connected to John DeMartini, and you immediately worked out, well, that's endorsement for me. And
Yeah,
John DeMartini would not actually have contributed to your book if he thought that you were a total wash up. He wouldn't do that. He
correct.
wouldn't do that to his own
Correct.
name. So that immediately elevates the game for both. It shows relationship. But in terms of the influencer, they want to know who's involved. So when you run a business, is for you, you'll be doing comparisons at times with people who've got successful businesses. But the thing is, you tend to only run after that which worked, but you neglect to learn from those who have failed, because you just want to go after the wow factor at all times. So there's a good and a bad to the influencer in that
Mm,
stage. Now, interesting thing is the way that you run a business, you run it as a driver, but you as an individual, Stephen, you are a sanguine because you are an
mm,
influencer. Why?
mm.
Because when it comes to your personal life, that's where the emotions will surface. Because I mean, let's face it, if somebody steps on you, you smack without even thinking. You know what I mean? Because your
100%.
emotions are tender; they're very tender. So at this point, I've heard that both people have got a natural and an adapted behavioral type. Like, yes, you naturally will drive business, get results, and that's what you want. And people think you just walk over there because you don't care. But the moment you get
I
into
do care,
yeah, you do care. But because the goal is more
but not
important,
enough.
yeah, because the goal is more important. So what? We got the goal
Yeah,
done. Are you pleased?
yeah.
But then, for you as an individual, that when it comes to how you want to be recognized, I can tell you, you do not want to be recognized as the driver, because the driver knows he's good. He knows he's competent. He actually doesn't need a compliment. He just does it. But for you in your personal life want to know and be acknowledged that, hey, I've made a difference. People noticed me. I made a difference in society. And that overrides just achieving the goal. It's that you as an individual want to be acknowledged for what you've achieved. And that's where the
Mm,
sanguine part in terms of who you are in your personal battle comes through. So now you guys
mm.
know there's an adapted and there's a natural side. But I'll just give you that one example and Stephen's example. Then there are two
Thank
other
you.
types. Other one is the S, which is the supporter, or it's called the phlegmatic. This is the kind of what I call the salt of the earth people. They quiet, they're always there, but they love to tell stories. In fact, when they start talking, you want to just say, a guy like me is like, can you just shut up? I mean, because
Yeah.
we have to get things done, man.
Give
And
me
they're
the
like,
short version.
yeah, I mean, just, they want to talk and they want to, because they love storytelling because they're excellent at what relationship building. Thank heavens for them, because those people
Mm,
that know how to build relationships keep us together when we need to be kept together. Because those guys come in as the unsung heroes. They're actually the counselors. They're actually the people who support everything. They service orientated. They're really just beautiful people. So when they run a business, guess what? They'll be taken a ride for a ride because people will use them, get their product and not pay them. And then they're too soft to go and fight the case. And they have to get somebody else to go do it on their behalf. Okay, so that's
interesting.
Yeah, so that's a support in the phlegmatic. And the last guy is what we call the compliant, the C, or as really called the melancholy. Now, that is Mr. and Mrs. Rules, facts, analysis. You know, they will never step into something before they've done their research. They will want to look, what's the facts? How do they analyze their business? In fact, but they can also get stuck in analysis paralysis. They sometimes so overanalyze what branding is about that in the end they get the information, but they do nothing about it because they're scared they're going to err. Because guess what? They are driven by how do we do life? They want to do things in the right way. So that's what happens in the cases of those people. As easy as that. So if I could just summarize in those 4 styles, you've got the driver or the choleric, you've got the influencer or the sanguine, you've got the supporter or what we call the phlegmatic, you've got the compliant or what we call the melancholic. So those are the 4 styles. And now, how do we run a business? Well, your 4 behavioral types will play a role. Like I normally say, behavior never lies. You run that business through who you are. Very few people become well-rounded soon enough in life to know, but I have to be all 4 people to run my business for and with all other people. That's the way that gets done. So
very good.
That's really the story, Stephen. Yep.
So here's the thing. Now, when you take AI, so you gave me that whole thing, and then I went to AI. I said, "Do you know the DISC personality thingy?" And it said yes. And I said, "All right, take me through the questions."
Just put your camera on again, Stephen.
Oh shucks, sorry, I didn't know that happened.
No, that's fine.
Very good.
There you go. No, you look better now. You were just a dark horse, but now you're fine.
So I asked AI, do you know, just yes, ask me the questions to ascertain what mine is, took me through. So then I created a prompt that goes, you know, you're a whatever, you know, coach, veteran psychologist, etc., and expert in all of this. Ask me the questions one at a time to ascertain what my DISC profile is, and lo and behold, if you do it, it does. So it's very interesting, this interactive thing where you go, ask me the questions one at a time. Correct. On anything. So I've done it with John DeMartini's value determination exercise. I almost fell off my seat. I said, "Do you know Dr. John DeMartini's value determination exercise?" I said, "Yes." I said, "Can you ask me the questions one at a time?" I said, "Certainly. What are the 3 top things you spend your money on?" I was like, it's exactly. I actually sent a message to John. I said, I've done this. Do you know that with AI, your work is not protected? There's no protection. That's the downside of AI to a degree, is that we just have all of that info at our fingertips, and there's no protection on our work.
Fantastic. Well, Stephen, if I
could just have a DISC prompt for people if you want to know what your personality type is, maklik. And then you could, in theory, try and do it for your wife or your girlfriend or your children. Better if they do it themselves. But and then because in relationships, if you know each other's, it helps, right?
True. Well, here's the easiest prompt that you can have. You can ask 2 questions to help sort of guide you which one of the 4 the person is, or which 2 they are. 1, you'd ask first question number 1, are you an extrovert or are you an introvert? The moment they say they are an extrovert, you know that they are a driver or they're an influencer. If they say they're an introvert, you know that they are a supporter and they're compliant. Boom. Now, sometimes you are a combination of both, left, right, or top down, but just that 1 question. Then the second question would be,
it's interesting.
Are you task driven or are you people driven? Now, the people always want to say, "Oh, I'm people driven." Well, here's the truth. If I put you under pressure, what would you do? Would you rather sit in a corner and chat to somebody and have some coffee, or would you rather go into action and get something done? Well, I have to tell you, I have to get something done. I hate wasting time. So that immediately is a confirmation. So now you add those 2 together. That is the easiest prompt to determine where people belong. Those 2 questions.
Yeah. Yeah, excellent. Very clever.
Okay. All right. So
Very
now
clever. Love
we've
that.
spoken about myself that has contributed on the area of DISC and how you could run your business and what you must bring into consideration. And what about Dr. Odie? What did he write on?
Yeah, I met Odie many years ago, actually at a Martini event, and I made contact with him. He's actually a best-selling author. I think he calls himself an Amazon best-selling author. I don't know what that means.
Okay.
And I know best-selling authors also quite nebulous. Tony Robbins, for example, like I think you have to sell 5,000 books. So what a lot of guys do is they publish and then they buy 5,000 books themselves and give them away. And so those 5,000 were bought. So it is a best-selling book, but it's so
Yeah.
I've got Tony Robbins's book Money
Yeah.
free. It got sent to me from America free, but that made him a best-selling author. So anyway, do you know what an Amazon best-selling author is? Just off the cuff.
Well, I know
Shall we ask?
in South Africa, it's 500 books to make you a national bestseller. Okay, but sold,
Wow.
not self-bought. Like, for instance,
Yes.
my first book I sold 20,000 copies. Now, that would make me a national bestseller. Okay.
Okay.
However, on an international basis, you need to actually have 4,000 to 5,000 copies sold to be recognized as an international bestseller, but sold, not yourself.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah.
All right. Well, he claims to be, and he is a best-selling author, like John De Martini, obviously. And we were just chatting, and he said, I did a talk the other day on fear forward, and it's really about facing your fears.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was on YouTube. Now, I don't know if you know, Doc, you can go into any YouTube talk, and there's a transcript that's immediately available. So we took that transcript, and I gave it to my virtual PA and asked her to just edit it. And then I sent it to him. He made a couple of changes, and we popped it into the book. But the essence of it really is facing your fears and doing the, nobody gets wealthy, nobody gets successful easily, and without like risk-free. There's always risk. You have to risk time, money, energy, direction, whatever. Sure. So the essence of his talk really is just facing your fears and getting stuff done and not being paralyzed by sabotage patterns, etc. Yeah.
Okay, so let's just recap so far. We've had John De Martini in terms of, call it the mind game. We've had Vinesh Maharaj, which really is on the sales entity. We've had Dr. Odie, which is me, in terms of facing your fears. We've had myself in terms of how does DISC come into business, and then Dr. Hardis. What did he write on?
Yes. Yeah, remember, he wrote on leadership, however, and quite a nice long chapter on leadership. But I asked him recently, so in the second edition, because I brought in a chapter on enlightened business. And that's kind of how enlightened humans do business. In other words, not harming the planet and not harming each other, and doing honest business where there's fair exchange of energy. And then I popped in a very interesting chapter on actually transcendental meditation. Transcendental meditation, there's a lot of scientific, like genuine scientific evidence on the positive effects of meditation in general, and then also businesses. Like if you have partners in a business who meditate, that the business grows. And so that's quite an interesting aspect. And then because of those two, I asked artists to do a chapter on how to run a Christian-based business, and from with Christian principles. And that's just because I'm universalist, and I felt that everyone should have a fair showing in it. This first one is a little long. I said, geez, it's brilliant, but it's a little long, so he shortened it a bit. But and the reason I put it in there is I'm Christian, and I define that as I believe in Jesus. The religious side and church-going side, that's something else. So to me, I'm a Christian, but I'm also more than that. There's more that I add into it. But we live in a Christian society. South Africans, I think in South Africa there are a lot of believers, not necessarily church-going, but there are a lot of believers. Correct. And so it would appeal to a lot of people to have that.
Well, I think, obviously when it comes to business, because you do know we all have our niche and our target market. And like you said, who are the 12 people that you're choosing? I can tell you when I coach at my executive level, one of the things is how do I run a kingdom business? How do I run a business on the right principles? Because now it involves character. Now it involves your personal value sets, etc. Um, and generally speaking, it was one of the hardest businesses to run because when you mess up, the focus on you gets expanded and gets blown out of proportion 500 times because people expect you to be perfect. And here's the truth, no one is perfect, but
No,
you
no.
need to be awake because there can be people that are walking around with, yeah, I'm running the right kind of business. But I always say you will see it in the fruit. If the fruit is
Yes,
positive, it's there. However, you cannot, if you're a cheater by nature, if you are wired to think criminal, guess what? It's going to come out in your business ventures. I don't care how
mm,
you project yourself, how goody two shoes you pretend to be, how good you are the Arthur Murray, because you know what? You can dance as much as you want to, boy, but you run out of dance floor sometimes because if it's not who you are, your dancing shoes fall off. And what
yeah.
I like, and I want to welcome you, I want to actually compliment you for including that part in terms of how do you run that business then a right way. Well done.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So, and I actually I love my book. I'm in love with my book at the moment. I mean, it's been the most fun to write, the quickest and easiest, but also I think the one that's in an obvious way having a lot of effect. I know all of my books do, and I often have people, oh, I downloaded your book because my other books are free. You can download them free,
Yeah.
and that was but you give me my see there's a strategy there as well. You download the book free, but you leave me your email address.
Okay.
So if you download, so you're engaged, now what, I might be able to do a wedding for you, right? Or if you're
Correct.
married, now what, I might be able to do some marriage coaching. So
Yeah.
there's some thought behind that strategy.
So what's the
And I
strategy with
lost
this
my
book?
train of
I mean,
thought.
obviously, as we now wrap up for today, what's the strategy with?
Yeah,
So you run a small business now. What? What's your strategy? What do you want to achieve with this?
the book. So the book is really firstly gain credibility because if I have a meeting with you to do, and I believe you're one of the 12 in 8 billion, right? That I want to do coaching with. The fact that I have written a book on the subject brings credibility.
Yeah.
Also, I can add it to the offer, so we can do coaching once a week or once every 2 weeks. But every Tuesday, you can also join the online coaching and get more out of it. And also it's almost a lead generator. So when I'm speaking about it on social media, if anyone likes it or comments, then I send them a message. Are you a small business owner? And if they go yes, oh, can we have a Zoom just to chat about options? So really the book is meant to make money, and initially, if you go into the group one, that's a little bit of money, but I know one or two of those people will move across,
Yeah.
and then we start making better money. Yeah, so
Well,
it's really just a strategy to a marketing strategy.
fantastic. Well, if you think of today's session, what was the one thing that stood out for you that is your takeaway and your message to whoever's listening in here today before I wrap up? Go for it, Stephen.
I the whole yeah, no, it's a good question, and I can't answer it, to be honest. I enjoyed everything. So I enjoyed everything. Sorry, man, I can't give you one thing. It was just as usual, a lack of 35 minutes spent with you, and I enjoy our camaraderie, and it took us a while, but we get each other, and it's unusual to have a friend like that.
Fantastic. Well, I can just wrap up for
Well, for
today.
me anyway, maybe not for you.
I'm going to just wrap up and say for me, I showed another side of Stephen van Basten to you guys to actually show you that what you see in the book is only but a touch of just of who this incredible human being is. We also have laid a seedbed in terms of you've got your black belt, now what? You've broken 85 with golf, now what? So there's so much more that's going to come from this author. And all I can say is watch this space and whenever you see that we edit, click because you're going to have value added to your life and have a bit of fun as well. So that's me saying, remember, leaders are readers. So if you want to go to the next level, the book right now that will take you and give you the prompt ability to learn more about your business, yourself, how to run your business is, so you run a small business, and now what? This is the prompting par excellence course right now. Nothing better than it. See you next time we meet.
I love that promptability. What? Where did that come from?